hope everybody's doing well. I know it sure is hot here. I'm sweating like a whore in church here in front of a fan in the shop. It's probably still 100 degrees. We've just gotten back from vacation this week, gotten some things buttoned up here around the house. We went down south, visited with Simple Man a few days. He is in Florida. We came back up through the middle of Georgia and up through northern Georgia, up through the Chattahoochee Forest, over across into North Carolina and into the Smokies, and on over into Pigeon Forge and spent the night there. Maybe some of you seen the little short I made of the room we were in. I'd hope so. I think there was around 3,000 people watched that, and it's continuing to grow. We got a really good deal on that room, and we've stayed at that hotel many of times and always had a good experience. It's River Bend Inn. It's right on Parkway. Good clean hotel. They've got it's just a nice experience. Anyway, it was just the wife and I. We had a good time. I've brought back some projects here. We may get into that in another video, but I've got several projects to do that will video on the channel. Some repairs, some performance work, but anyway, we have plenty to watch if you're new here. Just hang around. I'm trying to make this a drama-free environment, just kind of trying to separate myself out away from everything else. That's what I've done here. We've picked at people every now and then, but I try to keep things as laid back as possible. Try to help people out. That's kind of the only reason I do it. It sure ain't for the revenue, that's for sure. What little revenue we earn's about laughable. But anyway, it's all in a good time and all in the experience of the hobby, I guess. But I don't know if some of you picked it up. I've done several videos of this thing in the cut. The ones with my phone, you could pick it up more than the others, but it had an ignition sputter. I thought it was a coil wire. I changed the coil wire. Same deal. I've got parts everywhere for these things. I just keep them on hand. They're like my favorite series of saw to work on, if you can't tell. But I had another black coil here. We just swapped it out. It's a whole different saw now, so what we'll do in a little bit is go back and put it in another piece of wood. I have tuned on it a little bit. I've still got it tuned to pig rich. We'll run it that way a little bit until it gets a little bit of time on it, but it's sounding really nice. And he had also asked me to check out the chain. His fouling is on point. I don't know if I can even get that up in the camera, but I can't foul a chain that way. I can foul one to where it'll cut, but that's the difference between a seasoned veteran logger and someone that cuts a few cords of firewood a year and builds a few saws. His fouling's spot on, but he did ask me to check the drags. I've got them all level and evened out. They were kind of a little out here and there, but it should have a lot smoother cut when we get it in the wood now. But let's see if she'll fire back. She's just on a whole different level than she was when we got her here. She was running, but the story was it was just kind of down on power. It wasn't anything anyone had done. It was just a highway cylinder went bad. Just a plate, and then you know, just typical aftermarket stuff. You do see the JK Saw Shop sticker on it. Josh initially did put this together. To my understanding, I watched some of the video on his channel. It was just a junk pile build, kind of like we do here. You know, nothing he had done wrong with it. It was just, you know, typical aftermarket cylinder failure. And I live a whole hell of a lot closer to Justin than Josh does, so we kind of met halfway in between where we live. And I've actually got, if you just stumbled across this, I've got 4 of his logging saws here that he uses in production use. This will be the 3rd one I think we've got buttoned up, and then I've got his little 026 we're going to build. Try to get a little spicy build out of that. But if you missed the other videos, it's got the OE 371 cylinder on it. It's had machine work, port work. I didn't go overboard with nothing. My motto's always been kind of keep it simple on a work saw. With the ignition sputter, this thing was pulling like a damn train, so I can't wait to get it back out here and get it into a piece of wood. But I'm telling you, it's so hot and humid here. It's just crazy. We were down south last week. It was a little hotter down there, but where you're closer to sea level, there's more oxygen. It's easier to breathe, and I don't know, it just seems worse up here than it did down south. And I know that sounds crazy, but what do you guys say that I quit running my mouth and I make sure this thing's full of fuel, full of oil, and we go out here and let it rip? And disclaimer, don't copy anything that I do. Don't cut wood in tennis shoes and sweatpants. It's not safe. Someone had asked what this wood was. It's just an old skelly bark hickory is what we call it. It's hard as flint. Some of the hardest stuff I've cut in a while, so you know, it's a good test. And this piece here is about gone, so we'll cut a piece off of it and then maybe cut it in two. Start back all day long, guys. Well, guys, I believe that straightened it out. I'm glad I had that coil laying here. I do have a few more out in the saw shed, but they're at the bottom of all those totes you guys have seen in there. It just, you have to move 10 totes to get to the one you need usually, and it's so hot, I'd rather not have been out there digging around. But that's got her straightened out, I believe. She's revving out good and pulling good and smooth in the cut. I know one guy had asked why the saws in that wood seemed so jumpy or jerky. He was insinuating maybe the chains were blunt and dull. I promise you they're not. You won't even pull hard enough to cut that wood if you had a dull chain at all. I'd said earlier, Justin's filing on that chain's on point. I can't hand file a chain that good. I could probably use a guide or something and get one that good, but to do any better than that, I'd have to use my grinder. But that thing's on point. It's cutting good. Smoothing all the drags out and getting them set, and I've not got them set low at all. It's just whatever Oregon specs are with that little Oregon gauge. It's probably 25 thou or something. It's nothing aggressive at all, but that saw's pulling a chip. There's a mountain of chips out there, and it's pulling them in that hard ass hickory, so that's why it jumps and bucks when I go to first dogging in. That damn wood is just that hard, guys. If you're out west or in the Pacific Northwest or up north or somewhere, you probably don't even have a species of wood that hard, I don't guess. But that's just what we have to deal with here. The only other thing I might do is in a day or two when it's not so damn hot is we may put us up, you know, dig out a 10, 12 inch piece of poplar or something, sit in the cookie cutting stand and try it out there, just see how quick it is. But I set this saw up as an all-around saw. You know, you need to figure out who you're building for and what they want. I knew exactly what he would want. You know, he's a timber faller. They log with dozers and skidders. He's falling the tree. He's cutting it up into sections. He's topping the tree. He's limbing the tree. This saw will do all of that. It has had machine work, but it was nothing drastic. I've done just enough to get the exhaust roof where I wanted it to be, where I've found that these things perform well enough to suit me. You know, it's got enough grunt to bury that 28. That's full chisel in hard-ass hickory and pull on it. And it's zippy enough to limb up a tree with. And if he wants to take it to get together, he'd put him a 20 on it, put an 8-pin on it, and before anyone says it, it'll handle an 8-pin with that 28. But me personally, for falling and stuff, I would probably leave the 7 on it. But then again, it seems to be a damn torque monster too at that. But you know, he could put a 20 and 8-pin a race chain or something, go to get together and have a good time with it. You notice I didn't say when or anything, just have a good time with it. It's a work saw. We wasn't building a race saw, but I think he will enjoy running it. I don't think it'll have any issues. I will say I did not build the bottom end of it. It had been built by Josh at JK. That's where the saw, you can see that's where it originally came from. There was no port work or nothing done to it. It was just, he got videos on his channel if you want to go watch the build. It was just, you know, it was just a junk pile build. He took a bunch of parts and put a saw together, and somehow or another Justin Weaver ended up with it. And you know, later on down the road I ended up with it here on my bench. He'd sent it up here for an oiler issue. It was mainly just the oiler passages were stopped up. Got that straightened out, and he said he felt that it was a little down on power, so I ran it, and I was like, yeah man, saw's got problems, I'll check it out. And you know, we found a scored up top end. I'll give him his top end back. It's a highway big bore. You can see there was no port work or nothing done to it. It just right out of the box and put on the saw. And this saw had heavy use on it. You know, I could tell that just by working on it. You other builders know when you get one in and it's a heavily well-used saw. But anyway, like I said, you know, I'll run it a little more. We may put it in a stand. If it cools off any at all, cut some cookies with it. And other than that, man, this one's ready to go back home. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Everybody try to stay cool, and y'all have a good day.